doing going to an old Victorian railway arch? See, what were we doing going? What an intelligent question that was. Well, the main reason because of atmosphere. I've got some good news and bad news for you. The good news is we're going to have a great time tonight. Of course we are. The bad news is I'm afraid we haven't got time to see all of the 5 murder sites. Boo hiss, rebellion, rebellion. We want our money, but no you don't. Anyway, the thing is, we've only got time to see 3 of the 5 murder sites. The other 2 are off the circumference of our walk. It would take us 3 hours as opposed to 2 to see them all. But don't worry, we'll tell you where these other 2 murder sites are. Fancy a romantic evening out, you know. And I know, darling, let's go and visit Ripper murder site tonight. It's our anniversary. Anyway, I will tell you where these other 2 murder sites are, so you can visit them of your own volition. Now, before I tell you about the first murder, though, I want to tell you a little bit about prostitution in London in the 1880s, because it was 5 prostitutes that were done in by this maniac Jack the Ripper. Now, surprisingly, under that veneer of Victorian respectability, religiosity, and morality, to the extent where some Victorians apparently used to cover over their piano legs with cloth for fear of embarrassing people. No, I can imagine them saying, oh, I fancy your Steinway. To the extent where some women wouldn't say, oh, look at their man's trousers. They'd say, look at his southern necessities. It was all a bit prudish, wasn't it? But underneath that veneer of prudishness ran a river of sin and iniquity. In London alone, they estimated there are around 80,000 prostitutes. Now, considering about a month ago, I was listening to the radio, and they said they reckon there's about 80,000 prostitutes now in England. So there was a lot of prostitutes in those days. Now, of course, if you wanted to pay a lot of money for the girls, you go to the West End. There they will be parading in all their finery, up and down the Haymarket, around Piccadilly Circus and Leicester Square. They'll be going into theatre foyers to entice their clients back to rather posh bordellos, which on red folk wallpaper chandeliers. I'm just making this up, by the way. A couple of people nodding at the back. Anyway, this side of town, in the East End, there was many prostitutes per square inch as there was in the West End. But many of the girls in the East End were doing it as a result of poverty. Many of them were already living with common law husbands or real husbands, scraping together a few extra pennies to subsidise their very meagre incomes. There was only one other place you could end up at. If you were down in your luck and had no money in those days, it was the Victorian equivalent of the welfare system, otherwise known as the workhouse or the spike. Now, I'm sure you've seen Oliver Twist. Well, that was written around 1838, and conditions in the workhouse hadn't changed one single iota 50 years on from that to the 1880s. In other words, if you ended up in a workhouse, husbands were separated from their wives, single mothers from their children. You were given prison-like clothing to do prison-like tasks. We're talking about knocking rocks into powder, picking oakum, and I was unravelling old ship's rope. And in the